Trust Your Struggle is a place of inspiration. We have these conversations with individuals about the monumental struggles that they've had in their life, what they've done to overcome them, how these struggles and what they've done have kind of helped define who they are today. Creative director, aka the Can Donate Guy, Brian has been on an adventurous journey in his design career. Starting out at the University of Oregon, he spent much of his time drawing nudes, learning to screen print, and working at snowboard shops. After a Craigslist job gone wrong, he soon learned the importance of having a contract and knowing your worth. From couch surfing, cleaning out barns, living out of his car before van life was cool, to collecting cans to fund his own apparel line, Brian has always been driven by knowing that doing something outside of design was never an option. And how's Harlow?
She's good. She's healthy. She just had ear tubes. She had her surgery like a week ago.
Yeah.
She was just getting ear infections nonstop. So we took her in, and I couldn't go in. It was only one parent. And so I sat in the car for like 2 or 3 hours and just like waited. And then she's good. She's good. Everything's good. It's amazing having a daughter. As you know. Yeah. Like occasionally, like, you know, I think of you and I'm like, okay, now I know what Matt was feeling like back in the day.
Dude, it's the best thing ever. It really is. Like, yeah, I don't know. She's daddy's girl, huh?
Oh, for sure.
Of course.
When she got out of surgery, she was going nuts. And Lauren came out of the front door and Harlow was just crying. And she just handed her to me. And Harlow was reaching out and just took her. And then she just cuddled up and then stopped crying. And Lauren got all upset because she's like, I want to be wanted. I want to be the... And I'm like, I know, but let me enjoy this.
Yeah, dude. Oh, that's a dad moment right there, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get a bunch of them, but I got to enjoy them while I can.
Yeah, definitely. Well, dude, let's jump into this. I'd love for you to give a little introduction so people know who you are and where you're at and what you're doing. And we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Brian Jagodnik. I am currently the marketing and creative director at Outside Van. Might sound a little funny, but
what's Outside Van?
Yeah, because everybody's like, "Oh, what is Outside Van?" It's a Sprinter van conversion company, and it's all custom. I never really saw myself like kind of getting into that realm, but I'm an outdoorsy person. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I did the Nike thing for a while. And it's just like, I have the background of automotive, like, you know, audio with you when you and I work together. And so it just kind of, I got a great opportunity to kind of take on a whole brand, revamp it, kind of refresh it and make it my own. And, you know, they've got trust in me. And so I was able to, you know, put it on my plate, and it's been a great opportunity.
Was it, you know, everyone, because you're at Nike doing all the Nike stuff before, and you said like you were glad to get out of that. Was that kind of a disappointment? Because as being a designer or someone in this industry, it's like that's kind of the top tier of kind of the stuff that you would want to work on, or the type of client you'd want to have.
Sure. Like so I lived in Phoenix with you in the same city as you for a while. And my goal as a designer was to, you know, work for Nike. That was the end all be all, right? And when I work for Nike, I grew up playing all sports and knowing everything about basketball and football and all the stats and everything. And then I came up to Portland, and for like a hot minute, I was the art director at CCS magazine, but that's a long story. So then I went over to an agency that's actually a Nike agency, and we just did Nike work all the time. And I just, you know, nothing on them. It was, I guess maybe it was a mixture of agency life and Nike. They're a big corporation, but things weren't as organized, and there were so many changes. And I had no control over my schedule. It was like in the office till 3 a.m., like getting pitches ready and like on the road a lot. You know, I went to Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, flying around, getting, retail execution set up, and it was a lot. So after that, I was like, I want a little bit more control. I was kind of just the yes boy, okay, I'll get it done. So yeah, I wanted a little bit more control, and you know, like I wanted to go back in house. I did the agency thing, 2 jobs in a row, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go back in house, have a little bit more control, be able to determine the timelines, and because I was at a point in my life, like I was married and planning to have a family, and I was looking at my schedule and just how many hours I was putting in. Moses was a different story compared to what I was at, up here in Portland, but I just needed something a little more consistent. And so that's why, like, that's one of the appeals of this new gig.
Nice. Yeah. And do you have a team that works with you in house over there, outside van?
Yeah. So when I came on, there was a designer. So I manage her, and then we brought on a photographer / videographer. And so we have our team of 3, but then we freelance out other photographers, other videographers, other motion designers, just people to come in and fulfill needs for specific projects. Yeah, but our team of 3 produces a lot in a short amount of time. So I'm pretty stoked, and we all vibe really well.
Nice, dude. And did you go to school for what you're doing right now?
Yeah, my school story is kind of interesting. I went to University of Oregon, and they have an art school, and the design school is inside of the art school. So you have to apply for the art school. And so I applied, and I was the only freshman that got in that year. And the degree is digital arts. And like some people ask me, would you go back? Like, if you could go back, would you go to that school again? I probably wouldn't. It was more of an art school than a design school. Like, I didn't really get taught anything. Everything I learned was from my non-art classes. Like, I guess there was one class that I that really like sunk in with me, and that was screen printing. And it taught me how to screen print, and that, the rest is history after that. But just like the art classes were like, they were so deep, and everything has to be a metaphor. It was just
Right. Yeah.
I just want you to teach me how to use Illustrator and make some graphics and print some T-shirts, and like help me know how I'm gonna use this in the real world. And that kind of stuff never happened. And I had friends that were at the Art Institute and everything, and that just wasn't an option for me, unfortunately. And So long story short, I was at the art school at U of O, and then really, like, I learned everything in my professional career. Like, I had to kind of teach myself and like jump under the wing of other people to actually like learn.
So you're like technically self-taught with everything that you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Hands down.
Really? That's awesome though. I mean, that's cool. It just goes to show, like, it just comes into the type of work that you do, and picking it up and learning from other people and getting your hands dirty.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did you do after you graduated from there? Like, what was that transition like?
Yeah.
Were you out painting portraits and making pottery, or what?
Yeah. So actually, I was in a lot of drawing classes, and we just did nudes nonstop. Like, it was you know what? Here, I got to tell this story. So I was so the teacher's like, all right, we're gonna do draw today. We're doing charcoal, and we're gonna have another nude model. And I'm like, oh, great. They're like, oh, this one's gonna be a male figure. I'm like, perfect. The guy comes in, and he was in one of my design classes, and he's posing, he's doing his whole thing, and he looks over, he's like, oh, hey, Brian. And I'm like, dude, like, hey. Yeah.
Oh shit, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was just constant nudes. I'm like, I love the human figure. It's fantastic, but let's get off the nudes. Yeah.
Your teacher just had something up with that, dude.
Yeah, apparently. So when I was in school, I was working at a snowboard shop, and I was just doing rentals and selling snowboards and snowboarding nonstop. And then I basically became their designer, and then worked on their e-commerce and basically built that up. So when I graduated with my degree, I had a full-time design gig. I was a designer at the shop. And then after that, I got an internship in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, at Teton Gravity Research. They do all ski and snowboard films. So I went over there, and that was at the time when internships didn't pay you anything. I think now, like, you legally have to get paid something in some states, but in Wyoming, and when a decade and a half ago, you got $0, and they just had like rich kids that went over. But I went over there, and I worked for, I think it was like 7 to 9 hours a day, and then I went to the library because at the time I couldn't afford Wi-Fi. And so I went to the library, and I'd put in like 5 hours online for that snowboard shop, like working on their website. So I'd be able to generate some sort of paycheck that would like pay for things. And so that's what I did every single day. And then I go home, I go to sleep, I get up, I clean my car off from all the snow, drive in, work for free, then go to the library, make a little bit of money. And then on the weekends, I could go watch football at the local bar, and I could afford one beer. And so I sat in the corner, and they called me Oregon, and they put on the TV for me, like a special, like a little monitor behind the TV, so I could watch the Ducks play. And they knew that I got a beer at the beginning of the game. And they're like, all right, here you go. Here's your one beer. So I got that. I'm like, that's all I can afford, So.
Wow.
Yeah. But then eventually came back to Eugene and back to Oregon after the internship.
What'd you do then?
So I went back to the snowboard shop, and then.
And how old were you, like, around this time?
22.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then I went back to the snowboard shop. I was working, and then I was like looking at making some moves. I was looking at moving up to Portland, but jobs were really hard. I mean, at that time I didn't really have that much experience as a designer. I wasn't that good. There weren't a lot of jobs then. And so I did get an offer. I found this job on Craigslist for this apparel company.
Oh yeah, dude.
The old Craigslist for this apparel company. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm doing this. And they're like, all right, we'll bring you on board, and we'll have you design our first line. And so then I quit the job, and I moved up to Portland.
Was it a snowboard company?
It was an apparel. Yeah, they did jackets and just outerwear, and then a handful of tees and stuff like that. They don't exist anymore. But the owner's son was their designer, and they had a falling out, and the son quit and made a huge scene, and so he needed a designer to step in. So I was that guy. So they brought me in. I was like, cool, like I can do this. So I like started building their tech packs. I started like putting together the whole line, and I didn't have a lot of experience with like building like tech packs for like apparel with like seam lines and all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I can design t-shirts no problem, and sweatshirts and stuff like that, but doing tech packs, that's a different thing. Like I just had to learn how to do that by like searching like online. So like,
learn on the job, dude.
You never say
to learn.
Yeah, you never say you can't do something. You just kind of figure out how to do it. So that was me. But the thing is, I was so young, and I so wanted to like be in the extreme sports industry, and so wanted to be a designer, that we never talked about getting paid. So I was just like, all right, so I've worked X amount of hours. How's this gonna work? And he's like, oh, we'll talk about it next week. We'll talk about it next week. So I'd like come in and we talk about the apparel and I'm like, so like, how's the payment gonna work? Oh, well, okay. I mean, we could talk. Like, I'm kind of busy right now. I have to get going. We'll talk about it next week. So
is this like what, 2 weeks going by right now?
Oh, this is a long time. Like I put in over 60 hours and then at that time he's like, all right, so let's talk finances. He's like, what's the least amount you can make and still survive? And I still remember him saying that. And I'm like, God, who says that? Like what's the bare minimum I can pay you for me taking advantage of you? Basically.
It's the dude who posted on Craigslist.
Yeah, and that at the time, like I just wanted to be a designer. Like I wanted to do something. So, long story short, I don't even remember if I told him. I threw out a number. Don't even remember. But he's like, all right, next week we're going to do the full apparel line presentation. I came in. There was another guy that was there that worked there. Another girl who was also an apparel designer, and he was there. And I presented my whole line. I thought it was pretty dope. Actually, I looked at it like the other day, and I'm like, holds up. Like
Nice.
Yeah, I was like, it holds up. I'd still wear some of that stuff. And I presented it, and then at the end, he was like, all right, send over the files. Send over all the files. And I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable sending over the files. I'd like to work out a contract. Like we never even really talked about like how much I'm going to get paid. And you could see him just get riled up. And he said, can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Okay. He's like, get the fuck out of my office. Get the fuck out. And I'm like, whoa, like and so him being an older guy and me being a naive young designer, I was just like, okay, I gave him I stripped out. I went into the file and I stripped out a bunch of stuff really quick, and I just like gave it to him. Like,
oh shit!
I gave him the files for the whole line, and I left. And
what got him so pissed off?
So it turns out that he and his son had such a toxic relationship that my demeanor reminded him of his son. And
oh, gotcha. Okay.
the company contacted me afterwards and told me this. And he's like, but he'll come around. He'll come around. I'm like, yeah, that money better come around too. But yeah. So I waited and I'm like, hey, what's the next step? What's the next step? And everything just went dark. So I didn't hear. And I mean, we're like 2.5 months in and I haven't got a single dollar. And I have like $100 to my name. And I was like, well, this guy isn't going to pay. This is bad. I started looking at other jobs. I didn't have a place to live because I didn't have any money. And so I was basically...
Where were you living at the time when you were working there?
I was like crashing on my uncle's couch. And then luckily I had a girlfriend that was like okay with and when I say girlfriend, it's my wife. At the time, she was okay with dating like kind of a homeless couch surfer designer guy. And so I was just going around and my bank account started going down and there weren't many jobs available. And so I was sending him invoices and I was just getting no response. And I did them like certified mail just so I knew that he got them so I could prove it. I was getting advice from my uncle to like put everything in an email so everything's documented and time-stamped and everything. No answer. And I was just like, man, this sucks. So for 8 months, I was just doing odd jobs, going to barns and cleaning out the horse troughs. I was like doing the most random odd jobs just to make enough money to pay for like my car insurance. And like even talked to the snowboard shop that I used to work at, and they're like, yeah, if you want to come down like once a week and work like a couple hours, we'll cover you. So I was like I was driving down an hour and 45 minutes from Portland down to Eugene, and sleeping in my car at night, and just like, I got really comfortable with sleeping in my car. I had a sleeping bag and a pillow, and I just that's what I did.
What were you driving at that time?
I had a Subaru Outback, so I just like
Oh, of course.
tossed down the back, and I had a rocket box on the top where I just kept my snowboard and some of my stuff, and I just kind of lived out of my car and traveled around, and it may sound glamorous, like the free lifestyle now, but when you have like $100, like it's stressful.
It's kind of ironic though, because like you lived in your car, and now you're doing van life.
and now I work for it. Yeah,
it comes full circle, dude.
Exactly. So it all worked out. So I had that van life experience, but it was just forced.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you weren't paying like the 6-figure price tag for that Subaru either.
Exactly. It's just what I could afford at the time. I couldn't even afford oil changes. So yeah, it was a pretty wild time in my life. But everything kind of changed.
Were you like, fuck design, I'm done with this, like after that, or
it was the opposite actually. So it pushed me and said, fuck this, I can do this myself. And so that's when I started Attic, my apparel line. So I started this apparel line called Attic, and I, as you know, I had $0. So what I would do, because Eugene was a big party city, is I would go to parties, and everybody knew me as the can donate guy. And so basically they would toss all the cans in a big bag, and they would just keep all the cans for me. And I'd take them, and I recycled cans, and I took all the recycled money and I put it into printing t-shirts and sweatshirts and an apparel line. And at first I was able to print like 5 shirts. Then I was able to print like 10 shirts, and then I'd sell them. And what I would do is the person that donated the most cans to me, I give them a free t-shirt. So it was just kind of this, like, I ran like a little contest, and then people were like, hell yeah, I want a t-shirt. That's cool. So they would like, oh, I have like $20 in cans in my backyard. So I got really friendly with the homeless people in Eugene, and
yeah,
Are you
hooking them up with clothes?
Yeah, definitely not. But I thought about that, because that's just like a standing billboard, right? You just
exactly
you outfit the homeless, and boom, that's free advertising right there. But yeah. So long story short, it took off, and I couldn't even keep on recycling. It was just like we were selling everything, and we started.
Where were you selling all your shirts at? Like, were you doing e-commerce, or were you doing like pop-ups, or what?
Yeah, it was all e-commerce, and we'd go to like rail jams, and like it was all like extreme sports based. So we had a team of skiers. There's some snowboarders, a skater. We had some DJs, and they all just sported our gear, and it was all just ran basically through Instagram. And then we would set up pop-ups occasionally at like street fairs and stuff like that, and they were really successful amongst the college kids. And then I sponsored the U of O snowboard team and made their t-shirts. And so yeah, and I had the background. I had the background of screen printing, so I just printed everything myself. So I designed it myself, I printed it myself, packaged it all, created the tags, created the e-commerce deal and website, and basically did all the shipping. And so I learned how to do everything myself, which is pretty sweet.
That's the best way to do it. Less overhead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, I was still with my girlfriend, and she got a job in Phoenix. And she's like, hey, like, what are you going to do? Because I'm moving to Phoenix. And I'm like, all right, I'll apply for jobs in Phoenix, Portland, and then Denver sounds cool. I'll look at Denver. And literally, like, the first job I applied to was at a little car audio company called Rockford Fosgate. and they flew me down and offered me a job on the spot, and then I moved to Arizona.
Nice. And that was another in-house position then at that point, right?
That was an in-house position where I sat. If I was here, you sat about there.
Yeah, dude. It was, yeah. It was a fun time though, dude. It was, I really enjoyed working over at Rockford Fosgate. So.
Yeah, that was a blast. And like, I still didn't have like the full background of how to use all these programs correctly and how to like do everything properly. There's a way to design non-destructively, and yeah, you kind of took me under your wing and taught me the ways, and like, I appreciate that for one, but I hope I didn't bother you by constantly asking questions and constantly,
No.
hey man, like how do you do this? But everything that you taught me, like that kind of like framed me into who I am today. And whoever I work, like I noticed that whoever I work with, you like kind of take a little bit of their flair, and then you kind of push each other a little bit. And so that's something I definitely appreciate in my career.
Yeah, definitely, dude. I mean, that's what the growth is all about, is like collaborating and learning from other people and stuff like that. So it's just part of what we do and how we continue to grow. So
yeah, absolutely.
And so after Rockford Fosgate, that kind of launched your more professional design career then, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you and I were designing magazines and all sorts of sales collateral and catalogs, and I mean,
packaging.
Yeah, packaging. Definitely my favorite part of that whole position was the apparel line. I mean, that was awesome. But I had that apparel background.
Yeah.
So I was able to, like, I was getting better as a designer and able to, like, learn and, like, increase that line and design for someone else instead of just myself. And so, yeah, that was a blast, and that was about 3 years or so. So, yeah, that was good. But I was still, at the time, I was still naive and, like, didn't have a full understanding of, like, of my worth. I feel like a lot of designers, like, are lacking some self-confidence in a way. I don't know, like, if you kind of understand, but, like, I didn't think that I was all that great. I just wanted to, like, do this so bad that I was willing to, do whatever it took. And then, like, you went to Moses, and then Dustin came in, and shout out Dustin Chesson.
Right? Yeah, Dustin's a badass.
Yeah, he's great. What he taught me was about, like, protecting myself as a designer and knowing my worth. He's kind of like a tough ass in, like, a good way. He's like, I'm worth X amount of dollars, and if you're gonna, like, underbid me, like, screw you. Like, it's not worth it for me to do the project. So at that point, I started branding myself and putting together contracts, putting together estimates, everything documented to protect myself, because I had this fear from back in the day when I got screwed and I lost all that money from getting my files stolen, that it all, like, he kind of taught me that portion. Like, you and I did the art stuff, and then Dustin and I did, like, the business stuff, and I learned that.
Right.
He kind of took me under his wing for that, and I appreciate that more than anything. And so, like, I would say that, like, the two of you guys kind of shaped my career and, like, the kind of person I am today. But then went off to Moses and joined you at a agency.
Yeah, which was totally different than being in house.
It was completely different, but I loved it because, like, Louis and team, like, they had the business had confidence, and they didn't let the clients push them around.
For sure.
They were just like, we're gonna produce something kind of crazy, and we're gonna produce something kind of, like, on your level that will work. But we want to push you, and we want you to choose the crazy. I'll never forget the little Metro.
Oh man, yeah.
They should have taken that. But anyway, sorry, inside story.
Oh shit, that's great.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because you get into these conversations where you're just like brainstorming stuff, and you never know what's going to come up during those conversations, and some of it are just these gems that are just so good. And and that's what's awesome is like we still present them anyways.
Yeah, as you should, and that's why I feel like you and I worked really well together, because we came up with some crazy ideas, and it's just like, this is way too crazy, but is it? Should we just do it? And you get a laugh out of it, and then you're like, how far can we push the boundaries? Because that is what marketing and advertising is about. But now you can't go too over the line, because you don't want you can't be, you have to be politically correct.
Of course, yeah.
To a point.
Have you applied all of those things to what you're doing now over at Outside?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice.
So I play it safe. I mean, I try not to push it too much. I mean, we have a little bit higher end clientele. And with that comes higher, older demographic. So we tend not to press the boundaries too much. But definitely, definitely.
Nice. That's good that you picked that up and still kind of put your little touch in it somewhere. And what about your apparel stuff? Are you still doing any of that, or are you just working on your own brand now, or what?
Yeah, so I do a lot of freelance, and I mean, I always went by the phrase, like, show what you want to do. But everything that I was doing was just apparel design. So that's all I was showing. So then I kept on getting more apparel design. So I've been designing lines for a handful of different companies for years. And that's just comes every year. It's just like, all right, seasonal lines, and doing this and doing that. And I love doing that. And then now with Outside Band, we're actually just starting our apparel line. So I picking that back up and designing that whole line out, or that's going to be offered. And I'm putting together our online store, and we're going to be selling parts and apparel and swag and the whole nine. So that's something that's always stuck with me, and that's something I'm still doing today. Still doing it for other people, but in a way, still doing it for myself.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome that you're able to like kind of pull that back in again.
Yeah.
To the company that you're currently working with. So, because it seems like that's like in the thread of like that's your passion for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have a really good understanding of it. I have the screen printing background, so I understand what it takes. Like my inspiration has like always been like Benny Gold, Clark Orr, and like they get it. And like, so having that apparel background has always helped me. Hey, maybe we should add an apparel line to this. Oh, you can do that? Oh, perfect. Done.
Right on. Yeah, exactly. And I just saw recently you did a beer label.
Yeah. Portland Gear did a collab with Breakside Brewing out of Portland. And I was able to do some illustration, and I got one of my illustrations on one of their cans. And I'm not an illustrator, but my grandpa was a professional watercolor artist, and he was the art director at the Oregonian. It's a newspaper in Portland for 20 years, and he was just like amazing at illustration. He and I were like the artsy ones in the family. And I got suckered into buying an iPad, and I got a pen, and I'm just kind of messing around, and like started enjoying it. And I was like, why not? So I did I did this Portland based illustration, and the whole thing was based off of Portland, and they dug it. And so, the rest is history. And now it's on a can of beer, and I got a bunch of the beer, and now it's all gone.
Oh, damn. I was going to say, send me one. That sucks.
I have a couple empties, but it's Corona times, man. Like
That's true, right?
There's been a lot more beer drinking than normal.
Yeah, oh, definitely, for sure. Yeah, I think that's all across the board. That's cool about your grandfather and like his artistic background, you know, that you kind of grew up with that.
Yeah. I mean, he taught me how to draw. He taught me how to paint. He taught me how to be a musician. That's all we did. Like,
What do you play?
he was a drummer, and
Nice.
so he wouldn't let me touch the drum set. And he's like, "You have to play on the practice pad for like 5 years." So I was just sitting over in the corner, like, like playing on the practice pad, like doing my thing, and then we go out and paint, like mountainscapes. And I tend to do mountainscapes now, actually. Like, now, I do a lot of mountains. But yeah, like we would go out and paint Mount Hood, and he taught me just how to illustrate and he was a super weird guy, but he was a super thoughtful, loving man. And I mean, that's where that's why I have some of my tattoos on me, so yeah.
Nice.
Definitely my background.
Is that one of your grandfather's pieces, or what? Or is that a quote from him, or what?
Yeah, he was a calligrapher also, so
Oh shit!
he would do handwritten wedding invitations back in the day.
Damn, that's awesome.
So sick. So I took one of his hand written wedding invitations, and I took a quote, and that's what I got tattooed on me.
That's badass, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You probably got your talents from him for sure.
Yeah, I owe it all to him. I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know what it is, but now I'm connecting all the dots once we start talking about this. This is like a therapy session. Yeah, it's great.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Sit down, Brian.
Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah, let me I'm gonna put my feet up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So he grew up he was born in England during a bombing raid. And because the war was so bad, he and his family moved to India. And then he ended up leaving and going, and he was a street person in Vancouver, Canada, and played instruments on the street to make money. And so then he ended up coming down, he and his dad came down to Portland to live, and he taught music lessons and painted. And that was his upbringing. And so now it's like, hey, like, we understand what it was like being poor. Him a lot more than me, because I had a but yeah, I mean, like, when he passed away, and this is kind of gross, but when he passed away, we found his dental floss all packaged in one of his drawers in his bathroom, because he didn't want to throw them away, because he thought he might want to use them again, because he had zero money growing up. When you are born during the Depression and go through the Depression, you save everything. So he was a hoarder, and the dental floss thing is absolutely disgusting. But
wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of goes along with, the kind of person he was, and he appreciated everything. And yeah, it was I took a lot from him.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's awesome, dude. That's really cool. So it sounds like what got you through your time when you were collecting cans and living out of your car was just that drive for your passion for what you wanted to do, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like, like around college time where everybody's like, I don't really know what I want to do. I don't really know what I want to do. Like, you take that time for me and you go back like 5 to 6 years, and I knew what I wanted to do the whole time. I always wanted to be a designer. Like, there was no question about it. So I didn't have in my head, like, all right, maybe I should do another career. That wasn't an option at all. It was just like,
yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I just have to figure out how to do it. And I just have to figure out my lane to get into and, like, improve, So I would just, like, watch videos online, get inspiration from other designers. Like, people weren't posting all over the internet back then. It was like MySpace and shit. But
right.
Yeah, like, people weren't posting.
It was more in real life.
It was all real life. So you have to go to art shows, and you, like, Yeah, you got
It
inspiration.
was on skateboard graphics. It was on snowboard graphics. It was on the clothes you wore. It was on the album covers.
Yeah, exactly. So like I had all the little catalogs of CCS magazine because I would
Fuck yeah, dude.
I'll go back and look at all the skate graphics because that's what I got inspired by. Just all the snowboard, skate graphics, that whole thing. And that was my drive. And yeah, I had no other option. I just didn't have that adult job yet until the amazing opportunity I got in Arizona, which now looking back, I was like, what? Why? I wouldn't have hired myself, you know?
No, we saw something good in your work, dude. And I think it comes back to what we saw in your work was you doing the stuff that you wanted to do.
Sure.
And that's exactly what you got hired for, was showing your own personal work.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. I did show a lot of that. But nowadays, like when I was at the Nike agency and, now like I've interviewed a lot of people, and now you see a lot of entitlement. You see a lot of people coming in like expecting to make $60,000 a year, starting, never having any experience, like not a good designer, like thinking they deserve it. And that's been something that's always irked me, is just like, come on, like you have to earn your dues. You gotta pay your dues, and then you gotta work your way through the system just like everybody else.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many things to learn, and as you know, it's like every single job that you've had has put another like tool in your toolbox.
Exactly. So lately, in the last like 4 years or so, because of all the different steps I've taken, and I've made a lot of mistakes, right? But I've learned from them. So I've taken on like, I've helped other designers. I've kind of taken other designers under my belt, kind of like you did with me, kind of like, Dustin and I did, where, I help them. I help them with their resumes. I give them feedback on portfolios, like we do like a mentorship program in a way where like, these are people I care about. I consider them friends, and I don't want them to make some of the same mistakes I did. So it's like, you need wording for your contract. Perfect. Let me do that. Let me help you with that. I'm going to give that to you. Copy and paste it in. Like, or like, they tell me about a new gig they got. Oh, I'm doing this freelance job. I'm like, hey, so you work out the contract, and like, did you get your deposit before you started? Well, no, like it's for promotion. I'm like, no, do not do that. Freelance ain't free. Protect yourself. Like, so I just feel like more people, more designers need to understand their worth and protect themselves.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Because and it's hard because being in the creative field, it's like you love what you're doing, and yeah, there's a worth to it, but you would do it anyways.
Sure.
So like that's the kind of like struggle or internal struggle that a lot of creatives have, is like, they just want to do it, and the business side or the monetary side comes second, but you have to understand your worth and and then later on in your career, it's like all of those years that you've put into that, like that's, you need to get paid for all that history that you've put into it, all that time and experience.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that people don't understand. They're like, well, you're going to work like on a logo for like, 15 hours, so I should pay you like $200. Like, no, you're paying me for all those years of experience that I put in, that I sweat, that I slept in my car, that I went to this job, to that job, to this job, to that job. You're paying for the experience, not the final project.
Right, exactly. They're paying for all those cans that were collected.
Exactly. You know how many cans I collected? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, dude, I think that was awesome. I really appreciate you meeting up and talking with me about your journey through all of this. So it was really, really great. If anyone wants to reach out to you, wants to follow you, see your work, where could they do that at?
Yeah, you can go to brianjagodnik.com. Sorry, my last name is crazy. Jagodnik. or at Brian Jagodnik on Instagram. Check out my stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to keep current, but kind of keep going with the day job too. So, and raise a family.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're a student or have a portfolio and you want Brian to help you out or give you a contract, you can definitely reach out to him for that too. So.
Honestly, like hands down, all seriousness, absolutely. Like I will always look at someone's portfolio. I will be as blunt as possible because that's the way you get better. But I'm willing to help out anybody so they can avoid making some mistakes that I have and other designers have made.
Definitely. Well, thanks, dude. I appreciate it, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate it. It was a good talk.
Yeah, definitely.